Clay, which is the better council, the Jedi Council or the Xindi Council?
Well, the Xindi Council seems to be relatively proactive and open to discussion and debate. Jedi Council seems to just kind of suck and just talk about the stuff they can't do, and then ultimately end up ruining the galaxy. So I'm probably going to have
chairs,
to go.
Though.
Yeah, they do have. Oh, yeah, those really comfortable looking
space
kind of beanbag chairs. Yeah. Something you can really sink your yaddle into.
Yeah, it's pretty representative of the failure of the Jedi, where they became too comfortable and they had plush seats to sit on. They did not see what was coming for them.
Nice flowing robes. Did you ever think it was weird that the clothes that Obi-Wan wore while in hiding on Tatooine turned out to be just what Jedis wear?
Yeah,
that's the thing that everybody knows. I'm not the first person to point that out, but I've always thought that was kind of funny, where it's just like, oh yeah, that's just what they look like. He should have been easy to spot.
Yeah, it's like a Kung Fu Yi outfit or something. It's like that is a man who knows karate right there. But no, I guess they just to tie everything together, you got to go back and you got to make everyone wear the same white robes. And we're going to tie things together with the council here, where we meet the Xindi, and we learn all about the Xindi in this episode. So let's take a break. We'll take or play a clip from the episode, and then we'll come back and we'll break down the council.
The sphere builders have lied to the Xindi. They've manipulated us for decades. I see that. Perhaps the Arboreals will, but the others...
We have the evidence to back it up.
The evidence may not be enough. The sphere builders saved the Xindi from extinction. When our homeworld was destroyed, they began appearing to the survivors. They'd guide them to habitable planets, show them the location of valuable resources. They're practically worshipped. We call them the Guardians.
So, this is The Council. It's the 22nd episode of the third season of Star Trek Enterprise. It came out on May 12th, 2004. 23 of 28 in the Xindi Crisis arc, written by Manny Coto, directed by David Livingston. In-universe date is February 12th, 2154. In this episode, Archer confronts the Xindi Council. That's the blurb. I thought it was a mistake. I thought it was on the wrong website, but it's just that 5-word summation. Archer confronts the Xindi Council.
I was surprised in that opening that we did that you went with the who's better, the Xindi Council or the Jedi Council, and not the Xindi Council or the Council of 12. What was the thing from Picard about the Romulans? Conclave of 8. Conclave of 8. Excuse me.
Yeah.
How could I forget the Conclave of 8? Never mind.
If it had a council in the word, I would have used it.
Yeah.
It didn't, unfortunately. It's Conclave.
Conclave.
Here we are with the Guardians of the Universe in this one. The sphere builders are called the Guardians. We'll get into that, though. A little bit all over the place. This is the Council. Archer made it to them. He's going to talk to them. We're going to have a B-plot. We're going to have some death.
Got a big robot arm.
Chases. We got a big robot arm, which is very video game-like in that it defends its weak spot with its arms until it opens up to attack you, and then you shoot it in the eye, and that's how you defeat that robot arm.
You got to wait till it blinks 3 times, and then you shoot it.
Yeah, it's a butt stomp it with Mario or something. So the Council. We made it to the Council. The first thing that's... Well... This episode was a fine episode. I think it was okay. I think I'm sort of down the middle with it. I think that it executed what it needed to do pretty well. I think my main takeaway from this one is I've been rereading the oral history book of Star Trek, and I was rereading the Enterprise section, and I was just because I wanted to refresh myself. I haven't read it since we started the series. About what they were saying about the Xindi arc in that one. And the general takeaway from the oral history is that the writers are like, we didn't really have a plan. Brandon had a few things that he wanted to put in, and he would sprinkle them into people's scripts every once in a while, and then we got to the end, and that's when things started to get all put together. But we didn't really have a plan. He didn't tell us his plan as to what he thought was going to happen. So we were kind of flying in the dark as to what was going on. I think that the Council is an okay episode that makes me. I think that my impression of the council is if you talk to someone who had never watched Star Trek before, I think the council is what they would have in their mind's eye as what Star Trek is in a lot of ways. It's like a fairly unnuanced sci-fi action series, and I think it has like a popular pop culture conception thing of what the show would generally be considered to be, with a lot of sort of like aliens acting and speeches and defense and things like that, and not particularly. And I think that, like, I'm judging what the general population thinks about Star Trek, but not particularly well written. Not something that you're going to be like, well, this is kind of thoughtful. It's more just like, this is what's happening and this is what it's going to be.
Yeah.
The council is, I think this series trying to rescue its season-long arc in about 45 minutes to explain what has happened to this point, and they're going to give it to you right here, right now. And I think that it's just in the way that it does that, it just makes me feel like it's a strange fly on the wall view of what a Star Trek episode is, and that's how I felt while I was watching it. But what about you?
I would disagree only because disagree is not the right word, but this is actually closer to like the kind of thing I thought Deep Space Nine was, actually, where it's just like diplomacy and people standing around in makeup talking to each other. When I think of Star Trek, I think of a little bit more adventurous than this, or at least a little bit more Star Trekking than just, lobbying. But yeah, I know what you mean. It's fine. It's there's a lot of exposition in this, and it's a lot of stuff.
Let me before you go on. Let me hedge what you were saying there. So I understand it's like the DS9. I would say that this episode is a popular conception of what DS9 would do, but I think that DS9 is a better show.
Oh yeah,
and DS9's writing is better, to the point where if you're unfamiliar with DS9 and Star Trek in particular, you might just sort of think it's this kind of a sci-fi show. I'm having a hard time explaining it, but like I would classify it as like a sci-fi channel sci-fi show. It's like it's all there for you, but you're not. It's not blowing your socks off. Really, there's nothing particularly insightful about it or anything like that. That's kind of what I was going at with the opening salvo there.
It's like what I assume the Stargate show is like, which I've never watched.
Right. Yes.
Yeah. It's okay. They are definitely filling every single hole they can find right now, as far as like who the Zindi are, what they're about, what their backstory is, stuff that they haven't done up to this point. They're just doing, Archer, take a seat. This is going to take a minute, and then they go through and they do their whole the history of the entire people or whatever, and then the opening with the Sphere people I thought was hilarious. It was just, standing in the white room. I was waiting for the prophets to come out and Cisco to be like, "Hey, I'm sorry, but we actually booked this room for this time."
It's the awkward corporate. Are you guys going to have we have the room at 11:30? Are you guys done in here? What's going on?
You guys going to be here for the whole hour, or? But yeah,
I mean the sphere builders they're ripping off the founders, right? Like it's way too similar.
Kinda, yeah, I don't know. Like it's
founders / prophets, I guess.
Yeah, the thing that just keeps bugging me about this, and I mean, I'm watching this episode and I'm trying to get this out of my mind, because like I think it's unfair, and I'm sure I've done this, so I know I'm being hypocritical. I think it's unfair to watch something and just trash it because it's not what you thought it was going to be, or think that it should be, sort of, you know what I mean? Like it's
the criticism of rewriting the episodes that we sometimes get, which is that I would argue that our idea of rewriting the episode is to sort of highlight a flaw that we see.
Right.
It's not to spend the podcast going like, I would have gone down road B or whatever.
Yeah. And the thing that's catching me with this one that I keep trying to turn off is just the fact that like I really don't like that all of this season comes down to who has more convincing knowledge about the future. It's that's the back and forth of this whole episode, is Archer being like, here's some stuff I know about the future. And then the founders are like, well, you haven't seen the stuff we have from the future, and we've never steered you wrong yet when all the future stuff we've told you in the past. And then he's like, wait a minute. I think I have more convincing information about the future than I thought I did. Build me a body. And, it's just like...
there's no good evidence that can be presented in this because everything is dependent on time travel.
Every single
the reason
time,
why Archer knows everything.
Every single time someone in one of those scenes says what the audience is thinking, which is, how do we know you're not just fabricating this evidence? Great question. Unfortunately, it like breaks the suspension of disbelief a bit. Because it's like you're really drawing attention to the fact that this is like the slimmest of slim bullshit that they're hanging all of this stuff on.
And Degra has a defense line where when Archer brings on that little sphere builder test tube thing that the guy was in, and he beams it down, and they're looking at it, they go, "How can we know you didn't just build this?"
Right.
And Degra goes, "The humans can't build this." It's like, what the fuck? Like, that's the best you've got.
They
like,
haven't the tools.
It's just the humans. It was such a weak defense. It's a huge problem with it because it's so tied to the temporal Cold War stuff. Like the way that this season was kicked off was through time travel. Someone from the future came back and told Archer that something was going to happen. Mm-hmm. The Xindi launched a weirdly provocative test attack on the planet they were planning to attack, which caused them the ability to go off and defend against it. Time travel tells them they can do it. He goes into the future to realize that the Xindi aren't all that bad, and then comes back and says that the sphere builders are the ones who are going to be the enemies going here. And there's no substantive argument because the two sides don't disagree on anything. They just don't disagree. They just don't know what the truth is.
Yeah, the only thing they disagree on is what version of the future is the truth. And that's...
Right.
That's kind of... Like, I wish they... Go ahead.
The Xindi didn't go into the future because the Xindi have all these weird lines of like, the sphere builders showed us a videotape where that didn't happen. Yes. Archer should just flip the table and go, how do you know they didn't just fabricate that tape?
Right.
Because it's like they're both arguing the same thing here. So really, like this is like an algebra problem or something where if you cancel out the variables, Archer should just look at them and go, do we even have a problem?
Right, yeah.
Now that we've canceled out everything that no one knows, we're just looking at each other going, well, what the hell's going on?
Yeah, Degra tries to hedge that or fix that stuff a little bit by saying basically that they revere the sphere builders as gods. But I guess at that point they don't know that the sphere builders and the guardians are the same people, right? Because that becomes a bit later on where they realize that they're the same. So they revere they're not revering they revere the sphere builders, but not the actual aliens who have been telling them
not the
future,
aliens
right?
that they're talking to and that they call the guardians.
Right.
They don't know that they're the same people.
Yeah. So you get a little bit. I mean, I guess my point doesn't actually. It doesn't strengthen anything.
No, I'm sorry. Did I get that wrong? They revere the Guardians as gods because the Guardians came and showed them how to get to new planets when the Xindi homeworld was destroyed. So they revere the aliens and the sphere builders. Okay. Yeah, I think that's how it is.
Okay. Well, if that's the case, that gives you a little bit of wiggle room for believability because like they have hundreds of years or whatever of dealing with these Guardians and getting support and knowledge from them versus Archer just showing up and playing them.
No, but do they?
Tape.
Because that Xindi at the start of the season who told them to go, when did the Xindi homeworld blow up? Recently, right? Like not too long ago?
The Xindi homeworld blew up? I thought that was... I don't remember.
Yeah, that's what caused them all to scatter to the winds of space, and they're trying to reassemble themselves. So, but remember that Xindi in the Xindi episode gave them the coordinates, and when they got there at the end of the episode, it was that destroyed planet, and they were like, "Why did this guy send us here?"
Right.
That's the Xindi homeworld. But did that guy not realize that the homeworld had been blown up because he had left it so recently? So he actually sent them there. I don't know.
No idea.
I guess my question is, we don't know. We actually don't know, I don't think, that it's been hundreds of years of being guided by these guys, because I don't think they have a timeline for that. Except unless if they've told us when the homeworld blew up, because that's the first contact between the Xindi and the Guardians.
I'm even if they don't say it, I'm willing to assume it's something like that, just based on the fact that they treat them like gods and stuff, and they
sure.
Yeah. Basically, my point is there is some discussion that there is a history of the Guardians helping the Xindi in a way that doesn't involve time travel. So
right.
they are more. It makes more sense that they would believe the Guardians over freewheeling Archer showing up and being like, kill your gods.
Well, you know how you make that effective? You have scenes that display this relationship through the entire season,
which they don't do
to get
at
to
all.
this point.
No, they don't. They just
do
say
that.
It. They just say it in this one. It's like, oh, okay.
Well, Degra has mentioned them before, and this is the first episode where he goes, "Yeah, we treat them actually like gods. It's not just like they're just random aliens that we talk to. It's a totally different." I continue to think that a big problem with this season was the fact that we got very little scenes of substance of the Xindi. Mm-hmm. I don't think you would have lost anything by having opening scenes showing the Xindi talking to these sphere builder aliens before you even realize that they're the sphere builders, and things like that. Just to have when the founders were introduced, we had a couple episodes of them talking about them before we saw them.
Right.
And it was like that the other aliens treat them as gods and things like that, and that they're vital sort of cogs in this whole Dominion thing. But here it's just thrown in. It's really a furious retcon to try to fix everything that you should know about the Xindi. Like, there's no... The Degra explaining all the Xindi members, to me, felt like when you're creating a character in, an Elder Scrolls game, and they give you one line about the species. They're like, these guys craft potions, but they're weak against ice magic. Okay, I don't want to be that character.
I was thinking of, like Ocean's 11 or something, because they kept, anytime you brought one up, they do, a freeze frame on the guy's face, and it's like, the Arborians, they're really good with locks and getting into places that you're not supposed to get into. They're crucial to your team. Okay. Yeah.
Don't leave your wife around these guys. Yeah, that is what it was. But I mean, imagine if, because what he's spelling out there is why the Xindi Council has such a hard time getting along. I really don't understand why you couldn't have done this throughout the season to demonstrate that these are the traits of these species,
right? Yeah.
Without Degra just explaining it to you.
Yeah.
And it would have, in some senses, I think it would have been actually helpful, because it would have showed why they're so slow at launching the weapon, because they don't agree on anything. They're totally dysfunctional in how they're supposed to be getting along. And I think it only would have helped to have learned these things about these guys, and it gives you a better sense of why the reptilians are this way, why the bug guys are this way. To learn anything about the swimming guys, which is interesting. It's just I almost wonder why include it this late.
We learn a lot about how sensitive they are to the volume of people's voices, which is important information.
Don't talk too loud.
Yeah.
Just don't mumble, but not too loud.
It's one of those things too where it's like I found I've never been convinced that you couldn't shut this council down by giving basically watching this episode, having Archer show up, and you get two members of the council being like, at the very least, maybe we don't launch this thing right away. That just seems like a practical conclusion to come to. If you're looking at the span of the timeline here, they got 400 years before the humans come and blow them up, right? They know this.
Sure.
At least that's what the Guardians told them. So it's like, let's take a couple days to cross the T's and dot the lowercase J's. And I don't see why delaying the launch would be an issue. Because I've never been super, super convinced that there's an urgency on their part that they need to do it now, because the council is so kind of disparate and not really, whatever.
Yeah.
And the other thing, I really wish they got to stop showing Daniels in these opening things, because like going back to the time travel problem, as soon as you bring Archer to the future and be like, yep, this is what's going to happen, you need to convince them that this is going to happen, you've already blown up the Doc Brown idea of the space-time continuum and not telling people about stuff. So why doesn't Daniels just fucking show up? Or like bring a Zindi guy, spirit away a Zindi guy to the 28th or 35th century or whatever it is. It's just it's like it's such a big when the entire thing is coming down to, I need to convince these people or this society of, you know, weird alien people that time travel exists and I have proof from the future. If that's like the whole thing that's hinging on it, and Daniels is like, yeah, that is what it's hinging on. It feels like Daniels should be putting his thumb on the scale here in some form. Yeah. And the fact that he's not, but they keep invoking him in like part of having to explain shit makes it really frustrating.
Yeah. He has the sort of actions and motivations of a character who himself cannot time travel, but can bring Archer to him in the future, and then he tells him, you have to go back and you have to do this. Like, but we know that Daniels obviously can time travel to wherever he needs to go. So it is unclear why he can't do anything in this situation.
I hope they do it. I hope that's what happens in like the last episode of the season, is like the reptilian guy has his finger on the button to launch the weapon, and all of a sudden he's whisked away to the whatever future, and Daniels is like, hey, this is the future that you're about to destroy if you do this. Because that would be a great Deus Ex Machina for this ridiculous plot line.
I think that the more I think about it, the time travel aspect is extremely devastating to what the story is trying to do, because the time travel just removes any. Well, the time travel kind of serves two purposes. It removes any actual conflict that the characters would have, but it also is a kind of get out of jail free card for the writers, because they don't have to actually come up with anything in order to do it. Like there's nothing you can really prove, so there's nothing you have to work at to kind of explain. But I think its most devastating impact was that because time travel was involved from the start, you never actually had to get to a problem with the Zindi or the sphere builders or anything like that. There was never a reason why, because if they had a problem, proving time travel would still not fix their conflict, because they'd be like, well, that's great that time travel exists, but we still have a religious like difficulty with you, and we're going to attack you because this is the way that we've been led or something like that. So it just, for me, the story is kind of crumbling because there has never been a reason for any of this to really happen outside of this Guardian Sphere Builder influence on the Zindi. And the Zindi kind of come out of it looking like idiots because, well, I understand that the Guardians help them and everything going forward. The Zindi and the Xindi Council hasn't been shown over the course of a season to be a desperate organization that's desperate for any kind of help. That they view reconciliation of the Xindi as to be so important that they're willing to kind of fly by the seat of their pants and listen to this guy over actually trying to figure out what's going on. Yeah. And I think they kind of need that. I think that they need they almost need to be a tragic villain.
Yeah, it's the urgency thing where there's nothing pushing the Xindi. Like it's not like they're the inverse of Battlestar Galactica, where the entire Xindi people are stuck on a spaceship that's going to run out of air, and if they don't blow up the Earth or something, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like there's this, it makes it. It's really hard to have a moral conundrum when, I mean, they managed to do it a bit with Degra and Trip, but it's really difficult to have a moral fight when one side of the moral fight is, you just killed 7 or 12 million people from my planet. We would like you to stop. And the other side of that is, well, in 400 years, it might happen to us. It's like,
Right.
that's not really a compelling argument to have, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
But you know,
these other guys. It's even flimsier than knowing it. They don't know anything because
right,
they've never
exactly.
time traveled. So they're just going off secondhand information about what it is. And I think that the reason that I would want them to be desperate is that I think you have to build these guys to be so sort of pathetic and desperate for help that they just buy what the sphere builders are selling them. And because I'm looking at them, they seem relatively put together. They have a whole bunch of ships. People know them. They know what
Plenty
they're doing.
of ships.
They seem like they're okay. So the fact that, and they're extremely scientific, at least some of them are. They built this weapon. They built this whole thing. They're debating the merits of doing this. They're kind of a moral people. Not one Zindi has questioned the Guardians. Like they don't. They Degra kind of does and be like, I don't know you anything, assholes. But it just strikes me as really weird that a group that's so bland and Star Trek-y has never questioned what they're being told by these hazy holographic people who just show up and seem to have ulterior motives about everything. It really undermines the Zindi, I think. It makes them pretty pathetic.
Yeah, it almost would be more interesting. And maybe it's too early in the history of the war in the Middle East to do this, but to throw it on its head a little bit and have something have happened to the Zindi, like somebody already attacked the Zindi, and so now the Zindi are basically like Iraq has weapons of mass destruction kind of thing, where it's like we've got this, something happened to us, we've been attacked, and we're trying to figure out where to go to reconcile this, and we have information that it was, I mean, I guess is that kind of what they're doing? It's kind of what they're doing, but it's not really clear that's what they're doing.
Well, are they going to reveal that the sphere builders destroyed the Zindi homeworld? Have they explained why the Zindi homeworld blew up?
I didn't even realize it had until about 5 minutes ago. So it's not a plot point that they've been really leaning into in any real way.
No. I mean, but is that kind of what you mean? Like, if they reveal that the sphere builders destroyed the homeworld to spark this kind of, and then we're like, oh, you know, the humans are probably responsible. You should kind of blow up the humans and stuff.
Yeah, that kind of thing. Yeah.
I don't know if they've explained. I'll have to look it up while you're talking or something at some point. I don't know if they've explained why the homeworld has blown up, but even if that is the case,
something killed the birds though. The birds Zindi. Something killed the birds Zindi. We keep their heads to remember them by.
They do, yeah. They're alien heads. Well, they also hide out in the home base of the bird Zindi because that's another good way to pay homage to them.
Yes.
I just, even if that is the case of what's
like
happened, there has never been
Sam Cooke died. When Sam Cooke died, Bobby Womack married his wife and started wearing his clothes out of tribute to Sam Cooke.
Nice. That's what I would want. Even if they were to do this, and I'm just not hazy and missing out on the details, there still hasn't been a scene between the sphere builders and the Zindi where this has been a reminder to the audience that this is what the motivation has been that's going on here. Mm-hmm. So even if they do pull this together in the next episode or the next two, I don't think it's going to be actually very earned or interesting, or like it won't be a great change on the way that I view the story or anything.
Yeah, but all of that aside, like I said, I was really trying hard to ignore some of the stuff that's just like baked into the problem, like the time travel stuff and whatnot. And judge it on its own, and I think on its own it actually is a pretty good episode. I think
plot wise it's good.
Yeah,
I think that this script does everything it needs to do to get where it needs to go, and it doesn't feel forced or overly written to get to that point. Like I feel that this is a fine, cohesive way to get to places, but even when you get to, even by the process of doing that, I'm left with these weird scenes where Degra is the most well-known Zindi that we know, right? Like, Degra is the Zindi that we actually know anything about. And what's shocking is that the one thing that we know about him is that he's a father who likes children. And every time they can bring that up, it's the only thing that gets brought up. He's like, you know, that reptilian killed his own son? As a father, this upsets me. And
you should know, Wes. You should know. As soon as you have kids, that's all you can talk about is kids and your kids and what your kids are doing and what they're watching and how good Kung Fu Panda actually is.
My kids are watching Bluey constantly. It's a great show, Archer. What's strange about this,
what was actually really good was the Troll movie.
What's strange is that Degra never has a scene with his family. He might not have a family.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
He might just be an insane person who says things like this. But in a season that was more well thought out, I almost feel like the opening scene of this season is a family scene with Degra and his wife and children. You know? Like a kind of going off to work opening sequence or something where you meet him and sort of understand what he is. But it's just the flimsiness of the writing of these guys, where the best known Zindi we know one thing about him, maybe two, is that he feels bad about what he did. But the main thing is that he's a family man. And you never see that in action. He just talks about it occasionally, and you're supposed to accept it that that's the case. I think it's just really exemplary of all the problems that they made. So even if they have a script that leads you down the line correctly, you're still struck by weird lines like that, where he says things like that, and you go like, where does this come from? What is this happening?
Yeah, he's like, just walks into the room and somebody asks him a question, and he goes, "Well, I'm a family man," and you know that's the way he answers every question. So you know that
opens his wallet and the pictures just fall out. Yeah. Oh, geez, this is me and my son at Xindi Disney World. That was a good time.
Yes, Xindi Disney World. You got to go in November. If you go in the middle of the summer, it's just too hot.
The famous attraction blowing up Earth. Yeah. You've got to see it. It's fantastic.
But yeah, it's a pretty good episode. I think they do a good job towards the end of kind of ratcheting things up. I think killing Degra works. They do a little. They try to get a lot out of the council sequences by making sure everybody's yelling at each other at all times.
Yeah,
from every point of view, they're yelling at each other because there's things at stake, and like that.
I hated the council scenes.
Yeah,
I didn't like
it's a little bit too
scenes.
much. It's a little bit too much. I did like Hoshi translator on the fly, though. That was fun.
Well, so the thing about the council scene is I want to get to Hoshi. The thing about the council scene is kind of what I was getting at in the opening about like what someone thinks about Star Trek writing would be.
Sure.
Like it's just a lot of like declarative statements from aliens that are talking over each other. I didn't like the council scenes. Hoshi is strange to me. Hoshi has been inserted into this. I was trying to figure out the math of how this was working. Hoshi is clearly only down there because of the kidnapping at the end. They have to kind of bring Hoshi into this for some reason to make sense that when they kidnap her at the end, why they would do that, or like why they even know that she exists.
Yeah, I'm still not even sure. Do you know why they kidnap her? It didn't seem obvious to me why they grabbed her.
I don't know why.
We need her to order us food at Wendy's. We don't know how the language works.
Well, they're missing a code, right?
Right.
They're missing a launch. Are they going to use the avian code, and they need her to crack it or something?
Maybe.
The dead race. Do they have a code?
That's interesting. Well, but why would the dead race? Why would the dead race have a code to the bomb?
That's true. Maybe it's
not
just
a bad
some
idea.
Historical thing. They'll have a code or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, it's not a bad idea.
Because who do they have? They have the bug. They have the bugs, the reptilians, and they need someone else, I guess.
I don't
know.
For some reason, I assumed they got it from Degra somehow. I don't know. But, yeah, I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, I guess it depends on who's carrying the code. Is it something all of those species people know, and they can just, like, spit it out if they need to say something?
Yeah.
But Hoshi's... I don't think it matters, but this is a real, like, the logic of Hoshi being there didn't really make a lot of sense to me, except for understanding why she was kidnapped at the end, or that she was there to be kidnapped. Because they understand English, right? Like, Archer has talked to Degra.
Yeah. They have thrown the idea of any sort of translation system out the window long ago.
Yeah, and I understand this is a Star Trek trope, but I think that the reason I was questioning was because why does she need to translate some of these guys and not all of them at the same time? And if she can understand it, why has she not updated the translator thing, which is her job? I think is that she's supposed to be the one who updates the firmware on their translators. It's just a stupid thing, but I understood it much more once she was kidnapped. It's like, oh, she needed to be present for this entire thing so that they know who she is.
Yeah, I honestly it didn't bother me that much to bring her down in that first scene. I thought what they did with her was fun. It was a little bit more interesting than just click, clack, click, clack, click, clack, and then somebody else in the council relaying it, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, you're probably right. They probably need her to steal the third code or something like that.
If it's not the birds, I don't know where it would come from. I guess she would just steal someone else's code or something. But
Degra has a tattoo on his lower back that we can't figure out what it means. He says that it says family, but I don't think that's what it says because it's just a computer font that is a single letter to shape substitution.
Wingding.
Yeah. I think it's
Xindi Wingdings.
I think it's some sort of Zaf dingbat font. I'm not really sure. One of those fonts that every computer has, but literally no one has ever used.
Did you like the final Degra scene? I think you said you did. You thought it was good.
I liked the I liked that they killed him. I think that something like that needed to happen. And as soon as they showed him in his room in the dark, I was like, oh, he's fucking dead. And I liked that I thought that the realization.
I thought that the actor played that knowing that something was up, but I don't think the script did him any services to be like Degra's aware of what's happening, but he can't leave for some reason. Like that's kind of my. I always come back to this, but to me, that's a real weakness of Enterprise that's consistently been there. There's never been a second layer to a scene where in this scene the two characters are talking to each other as if they're trying to just kind of get through this and be like, okay, reptilian, like, nice to see you. Yeah. But Degra knows something is up, and the reptilian knows that he's there to kill Degra. But there's this subtext to the scene that even just to like, they're not even talking about anything. The reptilian's like, oh, nice TV you got over here. And he's like, yeah, I'm looking at some schematics or something. It's not even the reptilian isn't.
Is that 4K? I hear 4K is very popular now.
I wanted to buy one of the Chinese models, but everyone says spyware is on them, and I didn't know if it was worth the risk.
I've got, Degra, I'll tell you, Degra, I've got 5 different machines that connect to the internet now, and it's too many. I don't need to watch Netflix on every device.
If the TV has it, why do I need this Roku? Answer me that, Degra. That scene does not have the reptilian, at least the way I'm remembering it, probing Degra to try to get something from him, to get him to admit this. He has a nice conversation and then is like, why did you blow up our ship? And then stabs him, and it's like, okay, well, that's all it is. But a better written show would have layers to that conversation.
Yeah, there's no real tension.
It would at least explore something.
Yeah, there's no real tension to that. Like I said, as soon as you see the lighting, it's like, yeah, Degra's gonna get stabbed, and like there's no there's no the reptilian doesn't get anything out of it, and the only thing that we get out of it is that, I mean, Degra is being told stuff that we already know, which is that the reptilians are working with the Guardians or whoever. I'm still not totally sure why they agreed to in the council thing where the reptilians were down to explore it further. I don't know. Were they just buying?
I think they just want to take over the council.
Yeah.
I think that is that what you mean. Why do they agree to go with the sphere builders at the end? Is that what you're
No,
asking
no,
about?
no. When they come back after Archer brings the body out, they kind of deliberate, and then they come back in, and the everyone, I think, the Arborians and the other guys are like, we would like to explore this further, and then the reptilians are like, we also agree. We would like, and it's like, oh, the reptilians are agreeing to look into this more. We didn't think they were going to.
Right.
That kind of
Yeah.
And I'm not really sure why
I think
they
they're
did
just
that.
stalling.
Yeah, they're just stalling.
I think they're stalling for time. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and so in that scene where Degra gets killed, we're not learning anything new about what the reptilians are doing. All you're getting out of that scene is them telling Degra they know that he blew up the ship, which is like, okay, sure.
A reason to kill him.
Yeah, this matters to them, but this doesn't. I mean, this is all stuff we already know, and it doesn't really change much.
Yeah.
You know, nothing is shifting in that moment. And the only thing that we get out of it is really that's new information is that he plans on killing Degra's family,
Killing this
which is huge.
Family.
Because as we know, he's a family man.
I was disappointed by the death reaction. I expected when he said that to him, there would be some sort of final lunge from Degra who gets stabbed again. You know, something like that. It was fairly insulting towards Degra, and I didn't appreciate it.
Well, you know, I don't know. I didn't mind it
I
too
don't
much because it's like, you know, remember in Braveheart when Edward the Longshanks is on his deathbed, and then the princess comes in, and like as he's choking to death, she's like, "I'm pregnant with William Wallace's child, you son of a bitch," and all he can do is just like sit there and choke. It kind of reminded me of that a little bit, where it's like he can't do anything, but he's getting this infuriating information right as he's being killed. Yeah.
It is that, and then it just wraps up with the weapon shooting off into space and everyone chasing it, and to be continued, I suppose, with our next episode.
What did you think
left.
about the space fight or whatever it was at the end? We didn't even talk about the side plot, which do we really need to? I don't know if we do, but
I'm a little bit embarrassed. Why are they on the sphere?
No idea. They're getting some sort of. I think they're getting like a database or something.
But they don't know specifically what they're looking for, right? They're not looking for something that they talked about. They just generally went onto it to find information.
I think
something like that.
I'm not. I honestly don't totally know either.
I was a little embarrassed. I was like, I've been watching this plot line for about 15 minutes, and I don't know if any of the characters have mentioned what they're looking for.
Yeah.
When they get there and what they're going to do with it.
Yeah. They have that first scene where they're talking about going to get it, but I can't for the life of me remember what it is they were talking about going to get.
Yeah. Well, I just remember mostly the Reed recruits the Mako. He's like, "Do you wear that personal armor?" He's like, "I do." He's like, "Put it on."
Which again,
to the ship.
Reed's this scene was kind of steamy. It felt a little steamy from Reed's end, where he's talking to that Mako about his training, and I think Reed. What's the actor's name who plays Reed?
Dominic Kading.
I think Dominic
Kading
is trying to go for like a Clint Eastwood kind of thing, but it just comes off as he's like wants to touch this guy's butt. And I mean, like I said, like we've said before, I wish they'd lean into it because someone on that ship needs to be gay, and it probably should be Reed.
Yeah, it should be Reed, and just the. You know, he breaks down at the end. He's like, "How many more have to die?"
Yeah,
not that guy too.
But that
who got squeezed by a robot arm and incinerated and turned into a cloud of dust.
The scene when he recruits him, it was like Peter Graves in Airplane, and he's like, "Hey, Mako, do you like gladiator movies?" Like it had that kind of energy to it.
I do, sir. Yeah. Do
you like?
There's not a lot to say
hanging around in the locker room.
Have you ever seen a grown security chief naked? I don't think there's a lot to say about that subplot, except for the fact that T'Pol seems to have mostly recovered, and I like the set design of them being in that place. It looked kind of cool.
The best part of the whole thing is when the Mako gets evaporated or turned into dust or whatever, and they cut to T'Pol, and she gives the best, like, holy shit face. Like, she just, like, head turn, eyes wide, and then she just, like, starts running.
It's, yeah. I mean, I don't mean to pick on the episode, but I don't know if generally Star Trek would do this, but and it's a lot of TV shows, and a lot of TV shows in particular have this problem where Mayweather's, like, staring at the alien tracker device, and he's like, it's closing on you. It's coming down that thing. And they're going like, where is it? Where is it?
If he could just shoot it, why didn't he shoot it before it got
with
to
the face? He saves the day. But it's, you know, they're trying to do tension of, he's like, it's 50 meters away. It's 25. It's 10. It's right on you. God damn it. Look around. And when they're like, where is it? Where is it? And when they finally see it, it's just this, like, slow arm that's going slowly down towards them. And
one
it's
of
like,
those arcade,
oh, man, this
one
is
of those arcade arm things, arcade game arm things.
Yeah,
the
claw aliens
game,
from Toy Story that the aliens worship.
Yeah.
Just kind of a pointless sequence. They didn't get picked up at the end of the episode, right? The Enterprise says they'll come back for them.
Yeah, the Enterprise is like, you guys hang out here. We'll come back for you later, as they jump into whatever that vortex thing is. But that was the thing too. Like I feel like I wish there had been a little bit more of, like, a forceful split there, where it's like, okay, now Enterprise is gone and these guys are stuck here. What are they going to do? But instead, it was just like, okay, I guess we'll hang out till you come back. Thanks.
Yeah.
Whatever we have.
I assume the Enterprise is now just going to turn around because the thing went through the vortex, and they'll be on the ship at the start of the next episode.
Yeah, like if they spent all that time going to get this undefined tube, I guess, from the sphere place, which they need for something, and then Enterprise has to go after the sphere. So now they're split up, and they have the tube, but Enterprise needs the tube, and so what are you going to do with the tube now? Like, you know. Give it a little bit more. I mean, maybe they'll get into that in the next episode, but they don't, like, lay the grounds for that at all. And to spend all that time going to get something, and then either, like, I always feel like with plots like this, if you're gonna go out of your way to get something because it's like a secret to, it's crucial to your plan, it either has to not work or something has to get in your way of it working the first time. And I guess that's what they've done. But again, they haven't really laid the groundwork to make that kind of, like, interesting.
Yeah, well, it's just a classic McGuffin, right? They have to go get this thing. But the point of the McGuffin is that the journey is interesting to get the stupid thing. So I think that this story just wasn't interesting. It was the action component of these episodes that they have to do, but I don't really know what it was about. I think that's it for this. Nothing else goes on, right? Phlox, weird scene between Trip and Phlox, where Phlox is like, I've infected myself with tapeworms to lose weight. What was that scene?
It was
strange.
Trip and Phlox.
Trip. Yeah. Who did I say it was? Archer?
I think so, yeah. That was a strange scene. Again, I think Trip is very good in this episode. I think the scene with him and Degra, the two scenes with him and Degra are good. I like the one where they're kind of good now, and he's like, yeah, you know, last week I would have been happy that he was killed, but, you know, blah, blah, blah. That stuff was good. I guess that was after he died, but you know what I mean. Trip continues to be probably the most interesting character on the show right now, with surprisingly little to do, honestly. Being like the second or third lead in the show. He's just kind of like hanging out in the engine room, but I guess that's where they need him.
He's there was one last thing before we go. There's a section in the oral history where Kodo was just talking about how he would have redone the season if he had the chance, and he just thought that by making Archer the angry one, it took away Trip's motivation throughout the season.
Yeah,
and that Trip should have arguably been the angry one, who is the one in Anomaly. He's the one threatening to throw the guy out the airlock unless he tells him what's going on, and Archer stops him from doing it. And Kodo's idea was that he would have just eventually had the season go down this path where Trip begins to actually argue for mutiny because Archer isn't taking this seriously enough, and that there becomes a split amongst the crew about what's the best way to go forward. We thought that was going to be the Mako thing, but the Makos are obviously not going to do that.
Yeah.
Well, I thought that was
there was that one episode. So you're talking about he would argue for mutiny with no alien egg juice involved?
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
There would be no, or right. Archer would not be infected by the egg juice. So Archer would have just his normal motivations, and Trip would be upset about them.
Yeah, that would be good.
I think that's true because Trip loses a lot of his story impact by having Archer be the one who's constantly portrayed as angry all the time about things. Where Trip is really the one with the personal stakes that would make the Forgotten episode even better if he got to that point. And to have these scenes with Degra at the end mean something a little bit more. I think they're good, but I think that they could have been better if Trip had actually been developed over the course of the season.
Yeah, because I think you can have Archer have a change to him if he can still be the one making these intense, like ethically gray decisions. But I think that it's almost more interesting if he's just that much more cold and calculated about what he's doing, and it's not born of anger. So you even get to that point where he does something, and then Trip, who's the angry one, goes, "Holy shit," you know. Like I wasn't ready for that, and I want to blow this whole planet up.
Right. Yeah, I think you could even do something where they can start out equally angry, but Archer comes to his senses faster than Trip does.
Sure.
You know, so there's Archer kind of course corrects, but Trip maintains his angry energy, and that leads to this mutinous split down the line between the two of them. There's character work that could have been done on the show, I guess. Let's take a break. We'll play another clip from the episode called The Council. Then we'll come back, read some patron thoughts, and give our final thoughts about The Council.
You admit killing him.
With pride. He was a traitor.
He was a member of this council.
Degra destroyed a reptilian ship. 22 crewmen died. I only regret not doing it sooner.
You're going to regret a lot more than that.
Why did you call this meeting?
You have a decision to make. We've taken control of the weapon. We're going to launch it.
And you accuse Degra of being a traitor?
Thank you very much for listening today. Thank you for supporting the show. If you want to support the show, patreon.com/The Pensky File is the best way to do it. A couple dollars a month gets you extra stuff, extra podcasts. You get polls to vote on what we talk about. There is the Discord access for the captains. They can leave their thoughts and stuff like that. Well, they have the Discord access, and they can leave their thoughts about upcoming episodes on Patreon. All that good stuff. Supporting the show at patreon.com/The Pensky File. And as always, our Captain Tier supporters get a special thank you. Special thanks goes to Tark Latif, Samuel Custer, Joint Mango, Kyle Barrett, Mike Burnett, Andrew Turlog, Matt Ross, Michael Pond, Christian Pouch, Matt Cutler, Nick Sergey, Grim Santos, Sean, Cardinal Doomsday, Bradley Killens, Dwayne Hackett, Kevin Reyes, Fall 13 Hero, Jordan Cooper, Russell Elledge, Darth Mosk, HH28, Stephen Minton, Derek Zajac, Paul Roscoe, Jake123, Poindexter G, Patrick Seba, Dave Davies, Johnny Franceschi, Mike Harris, Captain Brazen, Eric St. Juan, Jakey's Gamer, Kevin Larry, Corey Martin, William Scheisler, Nick the Rat, Disbrutta, Rayhan Jaffer, Ed Mark Starr, Grapple John Zorn, Soylent Blue, Zane Majors, Olivia Pardue, Retail, Tom Hickey, Jose Hunter's EWNF Remixes, Captain McMunchausen, James McLennan, Beal, Lokai, Jonas, Tommy Tango, Tuvix Must Die, and Chris McLaughlin. Thank you, everybody, for supporting the show. All right, we'll go to patron thoughts now. Patrons leave their thoughts about upcoming episodes. We read them. Matt Ross says, the Council looks more like the Dominion is having a discussion which we are unclear about and which should have been focused on instead of concentrating on throwaway stories. Archer and the crew don't actually know what's in the spheres, but are going in on the hope that there's something useful inside to present to this evil Federation. Among the slow-paced odd story pieces here that don't really gel for me, I still don't get why Hoshi went to the surface other than to be a plot point in a later story. We see the launch of a giant ball that is helpless without 3 or later 5 ID codes and has no defenses and is vulnerable when charging, only showing that the Xindi are idiots. 2, are we there yet out of 5?
You know, there's a point in this episode that kind of really shows its hand as being manipulating what's happening for the sake of trying to squeeze drama out of it. And that's when the shuttlecraft is flying to the sphere. And T'Pol is like, fly towards that wall. And they're like, we don't know. It looks like a wall. And she's like, trust me. I don't know. It looks like a wall. Trust me. And then they go, oh, my God, we're getting too close. And then they go through. It's just a hologram. And then Reed goes.
Yeah. She doesn't say, trust me. She says, hold course.
Yeah,
hold
whatever.
your course.
Whatever she says.
Yeah.
And then Reed's like, you could have told us it was a hologram.
Right. Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, why didn't she tell it was the hologram? Because because then there's no tension about flying into a wall.
Yeah. That's why that's why it's not even trust me. Like, just like, I know what I'm doing. Just believe in me. It's a follow the order that I've told you, which is even harsher and unnecessary.
And it's not like in that scene there's other complicated stuff going on, so she doesn't have the time to explain or something like that. You know, it's not like they're running from someone. It's just like she tells them to fly towards that wall and literally withholds the information only for the sake of the television show, having nothing to do with the actual situation they're in.
Royo says, the Council, I found this episode quite dull and forgettable. Despite all the new locations and admittedly impressive close-ups on the makeup of Commander Dolam, the episode spends way too much time reiterating information we already know. We already know the reptilians and the insectoids would not cooperate because they're caricatures. We already know in detail about the evidence that Archer has, and we already know the sphere builders are manipulating the Xindi. This almost feels like a clip show episode, only they forgot to put in clips, and Jonathan, I'm at the principal's office, Archer, doesn't even have a fraction of the charisma of Patrick Stewart, so his courtroom speeches strike with all the force of a bent butter knife. If this is supposed to be a climax of events, then it failed, as the only new thing that happens is Degra's assassination, which I saw coming from a mile away, and the weapon being seized off screen. 2 out of 5.
I did find the principal story to be a little bit underwhelming, because, like, I immediately think back to, how did you pass the Kobayashi Maru test? And then he's like, well, you know, I had interesting, and then like they never tell you, and then finally he's like, I just rewrote the test. Like thematically, it lines up because he like rigs what happens with Khan because he doesn't believe in no-win situations. And then he's like, I rigged the test because I don't believe in no-win situations. And this one, it was just
right.
Yeah, the girl thought I was cute after I gave her a note, or after I went to the principal's office. Like, there's nothing thematic. Like, after he said that, I was like, is he going to try to seduce the council?
Just takes off his shirt in the council scene, and all the Xindi are just like, ooh la la.
Like, he's going to go in there and go, you know, I blew up a Xindi ship the other day, and they're going to be like, oh my God, he is a bad boy. Let's listen to what he has to say about the future.
One strange thing that line did make me realize, no, as far as we can tell, the only female is the aquatic Xindi. There were no Xindi played by female actresses.
Oh yeah,
or actresses
good point.
In general.
Yeah,
which is strange, which is unusual. They I guess the bug guys are supposed to be some female, and they say that the leader of the aquatics is a female. But
we also learned
strange
information we didn't have before, that the reptilians have like a home sauna that they can set up when they need to just like lay on a rock for a while.
Heat lamps.
Yeah.
What'd you think of the Xindi, the reptilian ship?
I honestly
didn't stick in your mind at all.
No, none of the Xindi ship. Well,
I thought it was like a.
Yeah, the one.
No.
I think it's Degra's ship that has like the long. What's the one with the long piece in the back? Is that the reptilian ship or is that Degra's ship? It's like
the reptilian one is kind of metallic and Degra's ship is the long computer Apple Store ship.
Yeah, I kind of like that.
Reptilians have like a gold design.
Yeah, I don't remember.
The reptilian one struck me as it was like a Guar concert or something. Like his command center looks like a keyboard that he could rock back and forth as he's standing behind it. Wasn't everything I was hoping before. Cal Barrett says, the council Archer embraces his Innie Jacka Weaver and strides into that council meeting with the full authority. In Azadi Prime, he tried to blow them up, and now he goes the classic Star Trek route and chooses to open a dialogue. The events of the season pushing the crew to get over anger and hatred and embrace the franchise's traditional values. My favorite scenes were the lighter moments when the crew briefly thought everyone would be okay and the great weight on them was lifted, even allowing them to joke before they hear of Degra's death and the tension returns. Excuse me. A clear and welcome element of Koto's scripts is that even in a plot-heavy episode, he finds time to insert fun little character details and interactions. I do wish we had seen a flashback of the Sphere Builders aiding the Xindi in the past, or at least had it seeded throughout the season, because them suddenly being seen almost like as gods by the Xindi comes out of nowhere, and we need to understand why the reptilians chose to stand by them when they were so obviously evil. 4 out of 5. Yeah. Nick the Rat says, Mayweather obviously hated Hawkins, and the final space battle was a lot of fun. 4 out of 5. Cardinal Doomsday says, the Sphere Builders chant like the witches from Macbeth. Archer tries to convince the Xindi Council into believing his story and causes it to inevitably splinter. Degra learns that no Xindi good deed goes unpunished. Hoshi must be Michael Burnham in disguise to be able to speak so many languages, and we know the reptilians are treacherous. Good battle scenes, shitty story. 4 dead Corporal Hawkins out of 5. Latte Librarian says, the death scene was a little over the top and everything was predictable. I wanted to know more about the avian Xindi since that was more interesting than anything else. 3 lying aliens out of 5. Point XG says, Paul, Travis, and Malcolm and some guy go out on a mission. I've seen enough Star Trek to know where this is going. I've also seen enough television to know what's coming for Degra once he and Trip have their moment. This is very much just a piece of the story. We'll see where it goes. Christian Pouch says, Hoshi! The amount of exposition and new information we get about the Xindi is staggering, and the details are still unclear, like how long the Guardians have been helping the Xindi. Decades? Centuries? All of this should have been meted out slowly over the season. The two halves of the episode don't feel strongly connected. I would enjoy the council scenes much more if the members had an ethos which guided their points of view, but it's just shouting at each other. I do enjoy the escalating tension and frantic struggle at the end of the episode. 3 out of 5 at best. And that's it. Thank you, patrons, for your thoughts about the council. Not a runaway favorites of the patrons. Clay, what are you going to give this one on our scale of 1 to 5?
I'm going to go with 3, I think. Mm-hmm. I think it does, yeah, like you're saying, it does what it has to do, and it doesn't whiff it, but it doesn't, blow me away or anything, so.
Yeah. Doesn't make any serious errors, I don't think.
No.
Most of the problems we talked about are kind of season-long things, or like
yeah.
The reason why this doesn't work is because nothing has really been planted to this point going forward, like in previous episodes. I'm also going to give it a 3. I thought it was fine. I don't know if you were concerned that we were sounding kind of negative or something. As trying to so we tried to sort of direct it towards the things that the episode did well in the middle of it. I don't think these episodes are bad. But once we get into this serialized thing where all of this is building, and it's been literally 20-something episodes of this to get to this point, when you get to this point, it's hard not to feel underwhelmed and be like, wow, it took a lot of episodes to get here, and this is not even really all that interesting at this point.
Yeah.
I think that's the big letdown of this so far, is that they had an idea from the start that they were supposed to go on something, but so much of the early goings was just spinning the wheels to the point where you get here, they have to tell you everything about the Xindi for no good reason. It all should have been spaced out. It all should have been built up to this point. Mm-hmm. The only way I think that this season works is if you get to know the Xindi outside of the Enterprise crew and they have a problem amongst themselves and things like that, but the season wasn't interested in that stuff.
Yeah, it's weird because it feels like I feel like you have 2 ways you can go at this point, which is either the way they ended up going, which is, all right, let's try and make as much sense out of this as possible and explain as much as we can, or just go the complete other way where it's like, okay, what's the most interesting way we can just blow this up and have it feel like shocking, but it works, but we can just get away from the stuff that we don't really know what to do. Like, it's if the reptilians had one of those grenades that they used at the beginning of Nemesis, where they just dissolve the entire Romulan Senate or something like that. Something to just kind of shock you back awake instead of just settling in for Drunk History Xindi edition. I'd watch that show.
Because all that's left is chasing down the weapon, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of upsetting that at this point, at the very final thing, the resolution is again to chase down the weapon a little bit more. But we have 2 episodes of that too, which is, I know when we had 6 episodes left, we were like, it feels like there's like 3 episodes too much for what's going on. I think that it feels like there's 1 episode too much. I don't know really how you're going to stretch this out all that effectively, but we'll see. There's still only 2 episodes left in this season, and then we're done with it. That's it for the council. One final point here, Clay, before we go. To show how much of an exposition dump this was, we learned the names of 3 key Xindi in this episode.
Oh, boy. Aside from Degra?
We learned Dolim, who's the reptilian. Jannar is the ape guy that we've been talking to for multiple episodes, but he's never had a name revealed that entire time. And then we learned the name of the aquatic leader, Kayafet Emensor.
Sure.
So,
yeah,
there you go.
I think names are generally overrated anyway, but sure. It's just because I don't. Albert Brooks has a really good thing that he says about the use of names in scripts, which is like whenever you always read scripts and people are constantly saying each other's names, but nobody talks like that. Like we've talked for over about an hour, and I think you said my name once, and I have not said your name once. And in a script situation, we would have each have said each other's names 4 or 5 times at the end of sentences.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking. So the name of the ape guy is Jannar, right? He's the guy who is Degra's best friend, and he tells them Archer early on that Jannar is a good guy. He'll be on your side. He's your vote. I think that what not giving that character a name does is that giving a character a name, at least from like a script writing point of view, kind of feels like you give that character a point of view for things. Sure. So if you don't name the character, you go, this guy's not important enough to name. He's just going to agree with Degra. Every scene with this guy is just going to be him going like, yeah, Degra, that's a good idea. Or like, oh, we should get some more evidence. He doesn't actually have an original thought as a character in any scene that he has. So you don't need to name him, really. I think to me, it's more interesting that you revealed those are 3 fairly key Xindi that we've, interacted with, at least the reptilian and the ape guy. To not have them have anyone say their names, I think shows mostly that you've spent no time with the Xindi whatsoever. Yeah. And they should have had personalities that they don't have.
I didn't even realize, or I wasn't aware whether is it Dolan is the reptilian?
Yeah, I think it's Dolim.
Dolim?
Yeah, he's the reptilian.
I was not sure if that was a character we had seen before because of the way that they introduced him in this episode, being like getting his sauna treatment there, and him having a name. It seemed like he was like
a new guy.
Yeah, the reptilian high council magistrate or some shit that we had, like the big reptilian. I don't know if that's the case because they all it's hard to distinguish between reptilians.
It is hard to. I think he's been there for a couple. I think he's the one who tortured Archer. I think it's the same guy. I think that's him. I think that might have been his first appearance. But as you say, it's kind of irrelevant if you don't know their names and they all look the same. That's it. Thank you very much, patrons. Patreon.com/ThePenskyFile if you want to support the show. We both gave this one a 3. The Council, 2 more episodes of Enterprise left in the 3rd season. Clay, do you have anything you want to say before we go?
Thanks for checking out all of our other shows. We got Rotten Horror Picture Show. We should have, I don't know when this comes out, but Quiet Place Part 2 should be out at least. We'll have Friday the 13th Part 7 on our Patreon coverage of the Friday the 13th movies. We went for 2 hours talking about Friday the 13th Part 7. There's a lot to talk about in that movie.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a good conversation because it's a movie that just like it's not a quote unquote good movie, but it's such like a breath of fresh air for me, at least in the series, because like so much crazy shit happens, and those movies tend to be kind of like repetitive and can be boring. So
what's the subtitle for this one?
The
Jason
New Blood.
Lives, is that New Blood?
New Blood.
Okay.
Yes.
Was Jason Lives 6?
Jason Lives was 6. Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
6. This is New Blood. Okay.
Yeah. And yeah,
2 hours of
2 hours of what?
Sorry, yeah, just 2 hours isn't I'm surprised by that. Just judging by the last the last one, it definitely does feel like the series has come to a certain level of inertia that it's either going to carry it or it's not going to carry things.
Yeah, it's very much moved into like a gimmick era where it's like they kind of did the main core idea for 3 or 4 movies, and then 5 through 10 are basically all just kind of like gimmicks.
Yeah.
The last one was What If It Was a Comedy? The one before that was What If It Wasn't Jason? And part 7 is What If Jason fought Carrie from the movie Carrie? So it's a good time.
Oh, nice. Cool. Check that out. All the shows are at thepenskyfile.com. You can also find them on the podcast apps. You can find them on YouTube, blah, blah, blah. Join the Discord if you want to join the conversation. Support the show at Patreon, all that stuff. We're done. 2 3s for the council. The next one is Countdown, I believe. Let's see. I'll click it to make sure that I know what I'm saying. Countdown is the next episode. And then we're at the finale after that. So, thank you very much, everybody, for listening. We will see you next time.